Let's follow up with three members of Parliament. James Bezan is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence. Paul Dewar is the Foreign Affairs Critic for the NDP. And John McKay is here for the Liberal Party. Good to see you all, gentlemen.
Hi there.
James Bezan, let me start with you. And we'll get to some of the content of the bill and the battle against radicalization in a moment. But let's start with some of the nuts and bolts of the committee business today. I'm not sure I remember the last time the majority members of the committee actually voted down the chair, who is a member of their own party, to shut down a committee meeting. Even the chair seemed genuinely stunned by that this afternoon. Why did that happen?
Well, the committee has been meeting since 8:30 this morning. They've been talking about the one same motion about how many witnesses and how many meetings the committee was going to have to study Bill C-51. And, you know, I used to be a committee chair, and I've been challenged in the chair by the majority committee before, which was a combination of opposition parties. So it does happen from time to time. But essentially, at the end of the day here, we have an agreement to have 8 meetings, calling up to 48 witnesses, plus the Minister of Defence and the Minister of Public Safety, to talk about Bill C-51 and do it in a timely manner and in a way that still allows the bill to get back to the House for consideration at report stage and third reading before the summer break.
Yeah, well, okay. So, I mean, we pay close attention to that committee stuff here at CPAC, as you know. Have you ever been overruled as a committee chair by members of your own party?
I've been challenged, yes.
Have you actually been challenged? And
but not defeated, but I have been
defeated.
Challenged.
Okay. Mr. Dewar, what's your reaction to what happened at the committee today?
Well, it was stunning, actually, to see the Conservatives, who are already putting time allocation on this bill, as they do often, but on a bill that's actually about our liberties and freedoms. And then to take it one step further and not only, you know, shut down a debate like we've seen in second reading, etc., but to then in committee to actually shut down further debate and to override a chair, as was just noted by Mr. Bezan. He might have been challenged before, but never, you know, challenged by his own party and his decision, you know, overthrown. So it actually is quite indicative of what's happening with this government and this bill, is that they just want to ram it through. They don't want to actually take the time, and which is a very substantive, important bill, and hear from people, to the point of even making this kind of bizarre, reckless decision to throw over the chair at this point. So
okay, but
it's indicative of what's going on.
If you were filibustering the committee business, why not shut it down?
Because this is Parliament. And Parliament does still, even though they haven't, they keep on ramming through time allocation, has opportunities to be heard. And this bill is a fundamental bill for our rights and freedoms. And this was an opportunity for us, and it was the NDP who pushed the government to finally relent and have more meetings and more witnesses, but to make and state the case as to why this is important. We have parliamentary tools that we can use. This is one of them. I note many times that the Conservatives use this when they're in opposition, but all of a sudden they'll have none of it when they're in power. So this is a statement. This is important to keep the debate going, and this is, you know, too important a bill to be shut down the way it has been.
Okay, Mr. McKay, let me bring you in here. What's your view of what happened here?
Well, ironically, Peter, I sat on the Justice Committee in late 2001, 2002 when we introduced the original terrorism bill. And it was a bit of a gong show, to be candid about it. I think we had about 80 witnesses, had 19 days worth of hearings. I think we traveled, and that was just the beginning of the intense dispute even among the members on the committee. Because it was a serious encroachment on Canadians' rights and freedoms, and I would say actually unprecedented encroachment on Canadians' rights and freedoms. And that dispute extended over into our caucus, where members of the Liberal Party actually lobbied and argued for sunset clauses and other ways in which the legislation is circumscribed. So the contrast between my experience as a member of the Justice Committee in 2001, 2002, and the way in which this thing is being rammed through before the election is painful.
Okay, well, I guess to people paying attention to this, what they want to know is, okay, at the end of the day, is this important piece of legislation going to get a fair hearing and fair study at the committee? So, I mean, that's open for debate, I guess. 9 meetings, some 50 witnesses, including the 2 ministers leading this bill between now and March 31st. Mr. Bezan, how many of those, and I guess this comes down to the fairness issue, how many of those witnesses will be called by the government side and how many by the opposition side to debate and discuss and examine this bill?
Well, ultimately, every committee is master of their own domain, so that the committees will decide, and usually it's done through the steering committee, and so the chair and the vice chairs will make the decision, working with the clerks and the analysts, and there will usually be a good balance. So you're still going to have those that are for and against the bill, but it's going to be expert testimony, and then after the witnesses, then they get into the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill. So, you know, this is still going to take some time. It's still going to give plenty of opportunity for opposition members and all members of Parliament, for that matter, to have their say on the bill and pass judgment on it at committee, and gives us time to get it back to report stage and third reading in the House in a timely manner. 9
meetings. The NDP, Mr. Dewar, wanted 25 meetings. Yeah. Will this process, in your view, allow Canadians to hear from the people you believe they need to hear from?
No. You know, we're glad that we were able to convince the committee and the government, I guess, to have more hearings. It's better than it was this morning. But look, we've heard from so many people across the country, both legal experts, people who are representing non-government organizations, individuals who are concerned about it, and they won't be heard. And they all have different points of view. We're not just asking to have the same people say the same thing over and over again. Because if you look at the perspective of those who are worried about the infringement on freedom of speech versus those who have real concerns about their nonprofit organization and the concerns they have about doing operations, to people who are concerned about the fact that this bill doesn't cover the de-radicalization that we need to see. These are all things that we need to hear from so we can improve. And the last thing is, I'm not certain we're going to see the government open to amendments. And I say that simply because of experience, not because I'm a cynic as to what will happen with this bill.
Okay. Mr. McKay, if I can move to reports today of these 6 young Quebecers leaving Quebec to join ISIS in Syria. Would this bill prevent that from happening?
Not that I can see. Just to go back on your one point as to how the witnesses will load up, the likelihood is that the balance will be in favor of the government witnesses, and it will be a fairly truncated hearing. I'd invite the committee to travel a bit. In fact, I'd like them to come to Scarborough and visit.
Committee to travel, John.
And well, you see, there's my point exactly. You're not going to actually hear from the people who will most likely be affected. I have a lot of immigrants in my riding. They will be affected, and I'd like the committee to, in fact, sit and listen to what they have to say.
All right, so
as to the other point, which is a legitimate point, I don't think it actually has any. The bill would have actually any impact on people traveling abroad and trying to leave and join radical groups. And maybe that is an area where the government might well be open to some amendments.
All right. Well, let's ask Mr. Bezan. Mr. Bezan, would this bill have prevented, or would it prevent, young people from being recruited and heading overseas to join ISIS?
For sure it does. It provides greater opportunity for government agencies and other CSIS and RCMP to communicate together, to inform each other about individuals that are thinking about becoming terrorists. It has the no-fly list, so it makes sure, it expands it that anyone that is trying to leave the country to become a terrorist, prevent them from flying, which that isn't the case right now. They're only prevented from being on a plane if they plan on bombing the plane. But they might be traveling someplace else to detonate a bomb. Then that's okay for them to travel. So now we can actually stop them from being a terrorist. So that could have happened in this situation, not knowing what happened operationally and these individuals and what information was known about them. But I know we sympathize with the families. And then it's also been reported that at one of the colleges that they were at is where maybe the radicalization took place. And under judicial authority, there could have been earlier intervention to stop the radicalization, to stop the online sources. So Bill C-51 is the preventative tool that could have really helped augment the situation or augment the policing in this situation to stop these individuals from leaving the country.
Mr. Dewar, do you read it this way as well?
No, I completely disagree with everything James just said, because what we've known, and we've noted in this case, we'll have to see all the facts, but one of my colleagues brought one of the individuals in this case, 18-year-old young woman from Laval, to the government weeks ago. And we know that in the case in Alberta, there was the following by CSIS. And the question is, why didn't CSIS pick up the phone and talk to the RCMP? There was already, and James just blushed over this, preventative arrest provisions. There's always the ability for the minister. But you just said that they couldn't do it, and you were absolutely 100% wrong. In this case, no, but you were saying they couldn't, and that this would allow. So you're completely wrong. And so, because no, that's not what has been ascertained. Because when Mr. Mulcair asked the Prime Minister directly, name one case where if C-51 would have been in place, it would have been different. He's come up with this many examples, and that says everything.
But it all comes back.
That's
here, Peter. That you know, preventive arrest is one thing, but it's also to stop them from traveling. It's the ability
to take away their passports now. You know that.
Right,
yes, you're going to take away a passport.
Okay, hang on. Let me give a final word here, Mr. McKay. Then we'll be done.
The original go through James' 3 points: no-fly list, more communication, that sort of stuff. That's stuff we all support. As to whether that would have any applicability to the particular cases that you're referring to, highly dubious. And I think that that's probably a weakness. I don't actually know what you can do in the criminal code about a bunch of kids at a university hanging out together, getting all kind of radicalized and revved up to go off and do foolish things. You know, these are societal issues and family issues that are way beyond the purview of a criminal code, but I think they do need to be addressed.
All right.
Well, C-51 is trying to do.
All right. I guess the next thing we'll watch for, gentlemen, we'll see what kind of information and expert comment we get as these committee hearings do.
That's the point.
Well, we'll get what we're going to get, and we have 9 meetings of it, so we'll be paying close attention. Thank you all for your time.
Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Peter.